Hey, how you doing? This is your boy BrogiNaric back again with another episode of BrogiNaric on films. And in this video, I'm going to give you my review of Wonder Woman 1984, which was directed by Patty Jenkins and has been announced for release for the past 8 years, and it has officially dropped on HBO Max on Christmas. So I'm just glad it finally came out. But this movie it seemed like they just wasn't going to let it release. It was supposed to come out. It had an original date, and then they pushed it back to I think it was like sometime in November. It was either November or October of 2019 when Terminator Dark Fate came out, and they pushed it back to June of 2020. But then, you know, COVID happened, so then they pushed it back to, I think, October of 2020. And then it got kind of quiet about it, and then out of nowhere, Warner Bros. Was like, hey, it's going to be released on HBO Max on Christmas Day, 2020. And HBO was also like, oh, by the way, the rest of our movies are going to be coming out day and date release on HBO Max in the year 2021. Although that's kind of shifting now because they kind of screwed over a bunch of different studios, not warning them or allowing them to make deals to get paid. So certain movies will release on HBO and certain will only release in theaters. Like I know Dune is now officially going to release only in theaters, not HBO Max. So, you know, it is what it is. But Wonder Woman was the first to do it. I think this is going to help out the HBO Max platform, because this is all this is done to do. We'll see how the box office does in the next year because of the whole vaccine stuff. But anyway, that out of the way, let's talk about the movie. I was excited to see this because I'm a DC fan, and I want their movies to do well. And I was excited because I really enjoyed the first movie. It was my favorite of the DC EU era of movies until Shazam came out and became my new favorite. And I was hoping that this film would improve on the weaknesses of the first movie. And it's kind of a mixed bag because this movie, I would say as a whole, I think it's a better film than the first. But there are certain things that are in the first that this movie sort of lacks it. Like there's certain scenes and moments in the first movie that are stronger than that are in this movie. But I feel as a whole, this movie is still better from like beginning to end, plot-wise, villain-wise, budget-wise. The scale of it is much bigger. But there are certain character moments and certain performances that I think are stronger in the first film that are in this film. But Patty Jenkins, she's batting 1,000. She did a good job with this. The direction is still pretty solid. It's definitely more of her vision, and she's not kind of, in a way, forced to fit the Zack Snyder aesthetic, which I think works, but also there was a certain look that the first movie had that I actually kind of liked more than in this movie. This movie is definitely brighter. It's definitely more colorful, which I'm not against. It does work, but then there are certain moments where it's like it seems like it's a little too much because this is a heightened reality. There's certain moments that feel very. This movie is very much more of a throwback to, say, the Christopher Reeve, Richard Donner Superman films, but then there's also some stuff that's kind of a throwback to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. A little bit of Indiana Jones is kind of thrown in here, and it works in a degree. I mean, I would like that stuff, but I think certain parts of it worked, and certain parts of it was just a little too corny for me. Like not like cool in a nostalgic way, but just kind of corny. Specifically, I'll say specifically the scene. There's a scene early on. There's an action sequence in the mall where one of them is stopping a crime, which is a big plot point of the overall story. It was it was a bit cheesy, and not in a cool way. Maybe it was a nod to the 70s TV show, which it probably was, but it didn't quite work for me. I'll get more into that in the spoilers. The synopsis of the film is, it's 1984, Wonder Woman is still fighting crime. She's doing it secretly. She stops this robbery which leads to this item being found, and this item is sought after by certain people that can really change the world in an interesting way. And she makes certain decisions, and other people make certain decisions. She has to deal with those consequences, and also has to kind of figure out a way to stop this ultimate power from destroying the world. There's a basic synopsis of the film. So Gal Gadot is Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman. It's 1984. She's living up in DC, and she is lonely as hell because all she can really think about is her ex, Steve Trevor. And in this film, Gal Gadot, I would say her performance is stronger in the first movie than it is in this one. She has a lot more screen time, especially a lot more screen time by herself. And those moments early on in the film when it's just her didn't quite work for me as well. Certain comedy moments she has didn't quite hit as hard, but when she's with Chris Pine, something about her and Chris Pine, their chemistry, he really brings out a good performance out of her. And when she's without him, it doesn't quite work. At least for me, it's not as strong as it could have been. But she looks great in the part. She has some bigger action sequences. Although I will say there is not a single action, in my opinion, there's not a single action sequence that is better than the No Man Land sequence in the first movie. That is still top. Like nothing in this movie tops that, action-wise tops that. And there's some other cool stuff in this film, but nothing the way that was shot, the way it was the music to it, everything was top notch. But Gal Gadot does fine in this role, just not as strong as the first. We also have Kristen Wiig, who plays, I think it's Barbara Ann Minerva, who is a scientist. She's like an archaeologist, geologist, anthropologist person. She works at the Smithsonian in DC. And she's a nerdy chick that no one noticed, and she just wants to be taken seriously and be taken seriously, but also have some enjoyment in her life. And she becomes friends with Diana. I was afraid when Kristen Wiig was cast because I was like, oh, this is gonna be another one of those nerdy person wants to be like the hero, get jealous and turn evil. And it's that archetype, but it's held way better than any of those. Way better than the Riddler, way better than Electro, way better than Syndrome. Well, actually, no, Syndrome is still pretty solid. It's still like Syndrome, way better than the bad guy from Iron Man 3. It's in that vein, but it's handled much better. It's not just, cause like in those, especially in the Batman Forever and the Riddler, Electro, it's like they don't even know the hero, but it gets slighted by the person, and then they're automatically, they're on my shit list. That does not happen. These two at least have a friendship, and the turn doesn't happen until much later in the film. So you actually have them as friends, you have them being cool with each other, then the turn. And the turn isn't out of jealousy. The turn is out of selfishness, which I thought was actually pretty very well handled. The action sequences with Kristen Wiig are pretty solid. And the look of the cheetah, I like the look. The look is not quite as the feral version as I was expecting. It's kind of a cross between the feral version and the hot version to a degree. It looked fine. It wasn't as garbage as I was fearing. She does very well. And we also have Steve Trevor, who was played by Chris Pine. He's great. He's not a bad performance. He's not, like I said, when him and Gal Gadot on screen, their chemistry is really good. But I will say some of the material for them wasn't as strong as the first. Or at least in the beginning, because there's some comedy bits where he's, a man at a time trying to get used to the 80s. Some of that humor didn't really work for me. But as the film goes on, when they're back on their usual back and forth, it really works. And he has one of the funniest moments in the film where he gets mad at Diana about something. It was really good. And his action sequences with him hanging in there, not still in the spotlight because he can't do but so much, but he does hang in there. He is useful, he's not useless. The dynamic between the two is still strong in this. He doesn't seem like he's dragging her down, and they both work well together. And finally, the other main role in this, there's only really like 4 main roles in this film, and that is the character Maxwell Lord, played by Pedro Pascal, and he's the MVP of this film. He really is. Pedro Pascal kills this role. It's good to see him. He's on a roll right now. He's got The Mandalorian going on, and he's got this going on. He does a phenomenal job as Maxwell Lord. I was afraid, well, I wasn't afraid, I was kind of thrown off when it was like, Maxwell Lord's going to be the villain in this movie. And I'm like, Maxwell Lord isn't, when I think of Wonder Woman villains, he's not the first person, or the second, or the third, or the fifth, or fourth person I think of when I think of Wonder Woman villains. He does have a unique history, a certain unique interaction with Wonder Woman in the comics, which they couldn't have done because Zack Snyder already stole that in Man of Steel. But he works, the way they handle this character, it really works. And the fact that Pedro Pascal, who is a Hispanic actor or Latin actor playing him, they actually worked that into the story, which I was not expecting. And it was really good. And I was just happy that with his performance, DC finally had a new villain, like a villain character that could top Michael Shannon's Zod, because it's been like 7 years since that, and none of the other villains, I think, surpassed it. There were other good villains, a few good villains, like Savannah and Ocean Master, but nothing that I would think was better than Zod. And I'm not even saying Zod was that great of a performance in general, but it was still a good performance. I think Pedro Pascal surpassed this. And like I said, Cheetah's really good in this as well, but Pedro Pascal has some really good moments in this. So like, yes, I've already talked about my negative. Another negative that I had, is not a big deal, but the Wonder Woman theme, the classic, I will say, Wonder Woman theme with the guitar, and it's Hans Zimmer does the music in this. I don't think he did it in the first movie, I'm not sure, but the theme is different, because that was the theme for BVS. It's not in here really. They do the theme, but it's more of a traditional hero theme. It's not the rock theme. I think it kind of pops up towards the end, but it's not the same. That was a little disappointing, I will say. But like I said, this is kind of a mix. As a whole, I like it more than the first, but there's certain things in the first that are stronger. Now, I will say the third act is not a problem in this film. The third act is actually satisfying, unlike the first one, which was like the weakest part of the movie. Was the third act. They do fix that in this one. But yeah, so with that being said, if I were to give this film a grade, I would give Wonder Woman 1984. I would give it a solid B on an 8 out of 10. It's a solid B. I give it an 8 out of 10. It's good. It's a solid film. Not as awesome. Like I said, there's certain things that it does well, but then certain things it doesn't do as well, so I kind of hold it back to that. The visuals are pretty solid, although some of them are not that great. Like I said, like that, there was some cheesiness that it didn't really work for me. There's some stuff on the island that's really good early on. We don't get much of it, but overall, it's a solid film. It's another, I would say this is definitely another win in the recent turnaround of the DCEU stuff. Now, another negative I will say I didn't really talk about. There is some continuity issues in this, but Warner Brothers doesn't give a shit, so I'm not going to get too mad about it because they don't care. It's their whole new strategy is like, we're going to make a movie. If we want it to connect with something else, it will. If not, don't worry about it. So don't get too upset about it, but there are some obvious and glaring continuity issues that, like, if this happened in the 80s, why didn't we talk about this in Justice League? Or why didn't we talk about this in BVS? Or why didn't we talk about this in Man of Steel? You know, it's shit like that, like some big shit like that happens. And I'm like, y'all not even trying, but it is what it is. Check it out on HBO Max. It's worth your time watching. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give this video a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. If you want spoilers, the spoiler review will be dropping soon. It should be somewhere, link in the description or annotation, so click on it. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. Peace.